A minute. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for today's presentation. Just bear in mind this presentation will be recorded. And today we have Sandy Parker. Sandy, as many of you know, is the founder of Sparker's Soapbox. It is a nonpartisan information resource for Collier County voters. She's also the publisher of the popular Subtract newsletter, Sparky's Digest. Sandy is a longtime league member, past president, as well as a member of the Greater Naples Chambers of Commerce. Her work has been recognized in the community and has received awards such as the League's Outstanding Community Partner and the 2026 Collier County Bar Association Medal of Honor. You will be on mute throughout the presentation. Should you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and Sandy will be addressing questions throughout the presentation. So thank you. And Sandy?
Thank you, Tina. And hello, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to tune in today from wherever you are, whether you're in steamy Naples or somewhere hopefully cooler. This is a presentation that I've been giving now for about a month or so, and every time I give it, I update it based on questions that people have asked or changes in circumstance. It's been a great experience to be talking to so many voters here in Collier County and helping them get ready to vote in the August primaries. So, as Tina mentioned, I will be stopping for questions along the way. Do put your questions in chat, and we will try and get them answered for you during the presentation. If there is something that you want to follow up with me about, please feel free to email me, and I'll be sharing my email address at the end of the presentation if you don't already have it. So here's what we're going to talk about today as we get ready to vote in the August primaries. I'm going to start the presentation with what I call the rules of the game. This is something that many people are not familiar with. I certainly wasn't when I moved to Florida 22 or so years ago, and it took me a while to figure it out. After the rules of the game, I'm going to talk about the political environment, not only here in Collier County, but in Florida, since we will be electing representatives at both of those levels of government. Then I'll get to what is going to actually be on the August primary voter and leave you with some key takeaways. So starting out with the rules of the game, the first thing that I want to make sure that we're all clear on is the definition of the words partisan and nonpartisan. They are words that we use frequently when we talk about things, government things, political, but it's a particularly important distinction when it comes to voting in Florida's partisan primaries. Very simply, partisan elections involve political parties. When we talk about partisan primary elections, we're talking about primary elections in which voters choose their political party's candidates to represent them in the general election. That's what's happening in our partisan primaries. We also have nonpartisan elections. Those are elections that do not involve political parties. But again, voters are selecting among candidates without regard to their party affiliation, but they're selecting the candidates who they want to represent them in office. The next thing we want to talk about when we're talking about rules of the game is the concept of closed primary and why that matters. In Florida, we are what's called a closed primary state. And in closed primary states, your party affiliation matters considerably when it comes to voting in partisan primaries. You must be registered as a Republican to vote in Republican primaries, or registered as a Democrat to vote in Democratic Party primaries. And you must have made that election at least 29 days before Election Day. Interestingly, I just got an email this morning from a Sparker Soapbox reader who said, my husband is a registered Democrat, but he wants to change to Republican for the primary. Can he do that? And he would have been able to do that, but he would have had to have done it at least 29 days before Election Day, and that cutoff date was July 20th. So he is not able to make that change for this election. There's an important exception to Florida's closed primary rule. The exception is that when all the candidates for an office have the same party affiliation, and the winner will therefore have no opposition in the general election, then all qualified voters, regardless of their party affiliation, may vote in that primary election. When that's the case, what would have been a closed primary becomes what's known as a universal primary. This is an exception that is part of the Florida Constitution, which governs how we vote in our primary elections. Well, we have something that's an exception to an exception. That is a write-in candidate. And a write-in candidate can close what would otherwise be a universal primary. And I'm sure if you've been voting in Florida, you have seen write-in as an option on your general election ballot. This is something you see in November. Okay, so what is a write-in candidate? A write-in candidate is a individual who is a registered voter who lives in the particular district that they are writing in for. Doesn't matter what their party affiliation is. They complete paperwork to appear as a write-in candidate on the ballot. The existence of a write-in candidate who is qualified to appear on the ballot is all it takes to turn what would have been a universal primary back into a closed primary. And what's interesting is, as this illustration shows, that write-in candidate's name does not actually appear on the ballot in November. What appears on the ballot is a line that says write-in underneath it. You can learn the name of the candidate, the name of the write-in, by simply looking on the Supervisor of Elections website. You can see the names of the people who qualified and what party they qualified to run in, or whether they qualified as a write-in. But that's all it takes to close what would otherwise be a universal primary. So let me ask at this point if there are any questions about this. It's so hard to do this on a Zoom and not live in front of a group of people, but I usually have quite a few questions about this. Are there any questions, Tina?
Yeah, the one question here is, when does a write-in candidate have to be announced?
Right. So there is a period of time called the qualifying period, which is about a week or 10-day long period set by statute, during which all candidates who want to appear on the ballot have to qualify, have to either pay their filing fee or submit the required number of signatures on petitions. The write-in candidate must qualify during that same period of time. And it's well before that 29-day cutoff. So, as I'm going to show you as we go through this, we voters have an opportunity as when the qualifying period has ended, we will know whether there have been any write-in candidates. And we will then have that amount of time between that date and um, uh, the 29 days before election day to change our party affiliation. So it's the same as for every candidate. Other questions?
No, no,
No?
no.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. So now let's take a look at how this played out in one of our local elections in 2024. You may remember that 3 Republicans qualified to run for supervisor of elections. Melissa Blazer was the incumbent. She had been appointed to complete the term of her predecessor, Jennifer Edwards, who had resigned before the end of her term. So Melissa Blazer was running for the first time. 2 other Republicans also qualified to run, Tim Jarrett and Dave Schaffel. With 3 qualified Republicans, we should have had a universal primary. But that is not what happened. An individual named Edward Gubala qualified as a write-in candidate. The existence of that write-in candidate caused the primary to be closed so that only registered Republicans could vote in the primary. These are some numbers that show that there were about 258,000 registered voters in Collier County for that election. Because the election was closed by the write-in candidate, only registered Republicans had the opportunity to participate in the closed primary, 139,000 of them. Of the 139,000 people who could have voted, only 42,000 people actually did vote for one of the 3 Republican candidates. This is how many votes each of those 3 candidates received. Blazer, 20,000, Jarrett, 7,000, and Schaffel, 14,000. Blazer got the majority of the votes cast in the closed primary, which is only 8% of the total registered voters in Collier County. So she was to go on the ballot in November, and the voters would have a choice between Blazer and write-in. Soon after the primary, the write-in candidate withdrew, and the effect of that withdrawal made Blazer the automatic winner. So that is how a write-in candidate can affect the outcome of a partisan primary. And usually people say to me, well, how often does that happen? Does that happen very often? And in fact, the situation is not unique. It's actually happened many times with respect just here in Collier County. These are currently serving elected officials who were first elected in a partisan primary that was closed by a write-in candidate. In 2024, in addition to Melissa Blazer, Vicki Downs, the property appraiser, was elected that way. In 2022, District 4 Commissioner Daniel Kowal was elected that way. Back in 2016, Kathleen Pasadomo, who was serving in the Florida House, was elected to the state Senate because the primary was closed by a write-in candidate. And similarly, in 2016, Byron Donalds was first elected to the Florida House in a Republican primary that was closed because there was a write-in candidate. So it's very important to understand and to be paying attention before that deadline, 29 days before Election Day, to whether or not you're going to have the opportunity to participate in a choice in the general election in November. So we've gone over the concept of closed partisan primaries and what a write-in candidate can do. I've shown you some local examples. Now what I want to do is turn to the political environment in Collier County. But I think before I do that, Tina, are there any questions? Any more questions?
No, Sandy.
Okay.
Okay.
So the political environment. Let's start with the state of Florida. This is the registered voters in the state of Florida as of June 11th. And Florida has more Republicans than Democrats, but a significant number of unaffiliated voters, no party affiliation, and minor party voters. Republicans control the Florida legislature. This is the makeup of the current legislature. We have 40 seats in the Senate, 27 of them are controlled by Republicans, 120 seats in the House, 84 of them are held by Republicans. So Republicans control the Florida legislature. All statewide executive offices in Florida are held by Republicans. Our governor, attorney general, chief financial officer, and agriculture commissioner are all Republicans. The legislative branch is not something that we think of as being a partisan branch of government, but in Florida, appellate judges are appointed to their seats by governors. Currently, this is the makeup of the Florida appellate judges by appointing governor party. I think it's something like 44 appellate judges, and just 2 of them were appointed by Democratic governors. So I think what you can see is that Republicans control all 3 branches. Control maybe isn't the right word. Our elected representatives are Republicans in the majority of all of the elected offices. Let's look at Collier County. Here's the makeup of registered voters in Collier County. 55% are Republican, 19% are Democrat, and 26% are no party affiliation and minor parties. So we are even more heavily Republican by voter registration in Collier County than the state of Florida as a whole. Another factor when we think about the political environment is how much money are the 2 parties raising for their candidates. Republicans generally raise more money than Democrats to support their candidates. These are 2 examples from the 2024 general election. For U.S. House District 19, the Republican candidate Byron Donalds had 36 times more money available to his campaign than Democrat Kerry Lerner. Florida House District 81 candidate, Republican candidate Yvette Benaroche had 9 times more money available to her than the Democrat Chuck Work had available to his campaign. Another factor in the political environment is voter turnout. Do the voters of a party actually show up and vote? And we can see that in 2024, by party affiliation, Republicans turned out a greater percentage of their registered voters than did Democrats or no party affiliation and unaffiliated and minor party affiliated voters. When you put all that together, it's not surprising that Republicans generally win Collier elections with overwhelming margins. So this chart shows you the results of Collier County voters from voting for president all the way down through voting for a county commission, where you can see that the Republican candidate won with overwhelming margins. In fact, Democrats have not won a general election race in Collier County in several decades. It was 1984 when Collier County voters last elected a Democrat to any office on the ballot, and that was property appraiser Sam Colding and Sheriff Aubrey Rogers. Therefore, I think it's safe to say that August primaries matter the most when it comes to choosing Collier County representatives. Republicans outnumber Democrats by voter registration. They raise more money to support their candidates, and they turn out to vote at higher rates. So the most meaningful choices are made in the Republican primaries. And in fact, most elections are effectively decided in the primaries. And so when I put all that information together, where I want you to be thinking right now is, what does that mean for you? What does that mean for a voter in Collier County? If we were in person, we would be having a conversation about this, but I will leave you with that thought. I will say that there are arguments to be made for and against changing your party affiliation in order to vote in one party's primary or the other. But doing so is entirely within the rights of every voter. And I want everyone to understand the rules of the game and the political environment in which we are voting as part of what you're doing to get ready to vote in the primary elections. So with that finishes up sort of my rules of the game and the political environment. Do we have any questions about that?
No, Sandy, there are no questions on that right now.
Okay. Then we're going to move on to what is actually on the August ballot. Starting with the federal offices, the U.S. Senate. So our current U.S. Senator is Ashley Moody. She's our junior senator, and you may remember that she was appointed to this position, which was previously held by Marco Rubio. Rubio was named Secretary of State, creating a vacancy in the senator's office, and Ashley Moody was appointed. I'm going to show you, this is a screenshot from Ashley Moody's website. I think it's really important for voters to look at the websites of the candidates as part of the research that they do, because candidates and the people working with them spend a lot of time thinking about what the website should look like, how the candidate should be presented on the website. Look at things like, what's the background? Here we've got an American flag, red, white, and blue. Who is in the picture? Is it just the candidate, as we see here? What words are meant to catch your eye? Here we've got Florida's America First fighter. Those are some phrases, right? America First connotes something. Fighter connotes something. Ashley is dedicated to America First policies that promote law and order, economic prosperity, and American sovereignty. So you look at the website and you take away what somebody wants you to know. One thing that I want to point out on Ashley Moody's website is she has a page on her website called endorsements. You won't see this on all candidates' websites, but when it's there, it's because the candidate is proud of the endorsements that they have. They want you to know who has endorsed them. They think that when you see the names of the people who have endorsed them, it will persuade you to vote for the candidate. So you should always look and see who has endorsed the candidate. The leading Democrat challenging Ashley Moody is former NSC official Alex Vindman. And this is a picture from Vindman's website. Vindman has a website. This is part of a video. So some of them are no longer just static pages, but they are actually videos. So I grabbed this screenshot. And Vindman, as you may remember, served as the Director for European Affairs in July 2018, from July 2018 to February 2020, and he focused on Ukraine, Russia, and the Caucasus. He was fired after testifying against President Trump during the impeachment hearings in Trump's first term. So Vindman wants to remind voters that that's his history. And this is a picture of him testifying, wearing his uniform. That's a message that he wants to get out. Now, you will not see an endorsements page on Vindman's website, but you will see something that was not on Moody's website, and that's this. Vindman has a button on his website that says Espanol, and if a visitor to the website clicks that tab, it translates the entire website into Spanish. So Vindman and his campaign have made the commitment to make everything that they want to say to voters on their website accessible to people who speak Spanish. Now, Moody and Vindman are not the only two people running for the Senate seat. There are several candidates running in both parties. Therefore, both parties will hold closed primaries. Republicans and Democrats will choose their candidates to face the no party affiliation challenger in November. Then we have the U.S. House, the congressional seats. And as you know, Florida recently adopted a new congressional map. And the previous map here is on the left, the new map is on the right, and the colors of the counties or their districts are colored in based on the votes for president in 2024. How heavily they voted for the Republican or Democratic candidate. And this shows that under the new map, Florida is expected to pick up 4 additional Republican seats in Congress. Here's a close-up of Southwest Florida, and under the new map, Collier voters will be in a new shape, District 19 or a new District 22. So District 19 previously extended all the way down the west coast of Florida. Now you can see it's cut off just below the city. And District 22, we used to be in District 29, the eastern part of Collier County. You don't even see 29 in Collier County anymore. We are either District 19, 54% of our population, or District 22, 46% of our population. Here's a close-up that shows a little bit more of Collier County. So District 19 is an open seat because the incumbent, Byron Donalds, is running for governor. And we have a lot of people running in District 19. 10 Republicans. I've listed the names of the those who are most spoken about. And that's Madison Cawthorn, Chris Collins, James Oberweis, Jim Schwartzel. 3 Democrats, Victor Arias, Robert Neild, and Howard Sapp, 1 no party affiliation, and 1 write-in. So with more than 1 candidate in each of the 2 major parties, there are closed primaries in August. Both parties will choose their candidates to face off against the NPA and the write-in November. Here are a couple of screenshots from the Republican candidates leading in the polls. Again, I'm showing you this to encourage you to take the time to look yourself. Every single one of the things on a candidate's website was a decision that someone made. So Schwartzel standing in front of his radio station's Trump Country 93.7. Oberweis. Interestingly, Oberweis's homepage does not scream Trump. But if you've gotten any mailers from him, and if you're a registered Republican and you're receiving mailers, you will see that he is definitely aligning himself with President Trump. Cawthorn, America First, there's that phrase again. We see a person holding a Florida flag. It looks like he's marching. Catalina Lauf, a very sort of neutral portrayal. She calls herself a leader ready to deliver. So you want to take a few minutes and look at the websites and try and figure out what it is they want you to know about them. So that's District 19. District 22 underwent some of the most drastic shifts in the entire state in terms of what goes into it and who is going to be electing the people from to represent District 22. There are 7 Republicans running, 2 Democrats running, and so Republicans and Democrats will both choose their candidates in closed August primaries. Now, moving down to the state level, in the Florida legislature, as in Congress, we have a Senate and a House of Representatives. In the Florida Senate, all of Collier County residents live in Senate District 28. So that makes it easy in terms of what district are we in. We're all in District 28. District 28 is currently represented by Kathleen Pasadomo, who is term limited, making this an open seat. There is 1 Republican and 1 Democrat running for this seat. Lauren Mello, the Republican, David Silverberg, the Democrat. As a result, there is no primary election for the parties to choose their representative. All District 28 voters, meaning all Collier County voters, will choose from these 2 choices in November. In the Florida House, here's a map again of the districts. 14% of Collier County voters live in District 80, that purple colored district in the north. 51% are in District 81, that's colored green, and 35% are in District 82. In District 80, the incumbent is Adam Botana. He has 1 challenger, Democrat William Moskal. And so we will, again, not have anything on the ballot in August. The 2 of them will be on the ballot for all voters in November. Similarly, in House District 81, the incumbent, Yvette Benaroche, has only 1 challenger, and that's Democrat Kim Feiner. So again, nothing in August. District 81 voters will choose their state representative in November. District 82 is a different story. District 82 currently is represented by Lauren Mello, who we saw is running for the Florida Senate seat. So District 82 is an open seat. We have 2 Republicans running and 1 Democrat. So there will be a closed Republican primary in August. Bill Poteet and Lisa Priddy are the candidates. Republicans will choose 1 to face off against Democrat Arthur Boyer in November. In the executive branch, we have the governor and the cabinet heading up the executive branch of Florida government, and all 4 of these positions are on the ballot this year. We know that Ron DeSantis is term limited and that Byron Donalds is considered the front runner in that race. This is a picture of his website, and you can see Trump endorsed, proven conservative fighter, and again endorsed by President Trump. But there are actually 28 people running for governor in the state of Florida, 11 Republicans, 6 Democrats, and 11 people from a variety of other party affiliations. Republicans and Democrats will choose their candidates in closed primary in August. The winners will again in November face those 11 other names. So in November, there's going to be a long list to choose from, but just one Republican and one Democrat. The Attorney General, our incumbent Attorney General is James Othmeyer. He was appointed to this position by Governor DeSantis when the previous Attorney General, who we had elected, Ashley Moody, was appointed to the U.S. Senate. So this is Othmeyer's first run for this office. He faces one Democrat challenger, Jose Javier Rodriguez. So again, nothing in August. We will all choose between the two in November. Chief Financial Officer, another position where the incumbent was not elected by Florida voters. Blaise Ingoglia was appointed to this position by Governor DeSantis when the CFO that voters had elected resigned to run for Congress. And that person was, I'm going to blank on his name, Jimmy Patronis. So Jimmy Patronis is now serving in Congress. Blaise Ingoglia is seeking election to the office. He has one Republican challenger, Frank College, and there are 2 Democrats running, Earl Ford and Annette Taddeo. And so there will be closed primaries for both parties, and the winners will face off in November. Commissioner of Agriculture Wilton Simpson is the incumbent that voters elected 4 years ago. He has one Republican challenger, Matt Taylor, and he faces, there are also 2 Democrat challengers, Joey Mendoza Atkins and Donald Pritchard. So both parties will have closed primaries. The winners will face off in November. Moving to the judicial branch of Florida government, we do vote on judges in Florida. Those of you who've been voting here for a while know that. In August, we only vote for one type of judge. So let me show you a picture. This is the system of state courts in Florida, and there are 4 levels of the court system. You don't really need to know the details of what each level does, but it helps to understand that the top 2 levels, the Supreme Court and the District Courts of Appeal, are called appellate courts. We looked at those appellate court judges back when I was showing you the political environment. And the lower 2 levels are called trial courts. That's the judicial circuits and the county courts. So appellate court justices and judges are selected differently than trial court judges. They are initially, the appellate court judges and justices are initially appointed by the governor. That's why we were talking before about the party of the governor who appointed them. They're appointed initially to the bench by the governor, and then voters get a decision of whether or not that person should stay in office. Yes or no, should they stay in office? That happens in November. Those are called merit retention votes. But the trial court judges are elected the same as any other nonpartisan official is elected. We have competitive races. They don't run with party affiliations. But if there's more than one person running for a particular judicial seat, voters in August will choose who they want to represent them in the court. So Florida, Collier County falls within Florida's 20th Judicial Circuit. And here you can see the 5 counties here on the map. And all of the voters in that judicial district circuit elect the voters who serve on the bench. Now, there are quite a few judges serving in the 20th Circuit, but what tends to happen is a sitting judge who seeks reelection usually does not face a challenger. And so voters don't have an opportunity to weigh in on them once they are in office. But if there is somebody who wants to challenge an incumbent, that's when we voters have an opportunity to weigh in. And we have that situation this August where we have two 20th Circuit Court races on the ballot. The incumbents are James Stewart and Amanda Levy-Reese. Each of them has one challenger. So all Collier County voters will have a choice between Stewart and Bergerman and a choice between Levy-Reese and Kuhl on their August ballot. Moving on to the Board of County Commissioners. Collier County residents live in one of 5 county commission districts. The district lines were drawn to have roughly the same number of voters in each district. And there are 5 commissioners. 2 of the 5 seats are on the ballot this year. Chris Hall is the incumbent in District 2. Daniel Kowal is the incumbent in District 4. In District 2, Chris Hall faces just one challenger, and that person is Cody Davis. He is with the Jeffersonian Party of Florida. So District 2 voters will not have any choice on their ballot until November, and in November you will see both of these names on the ballot. In District 4, Daniel Kowal has one challenger. That challenger is also a Republican, Daniel Zagarak. This is the situation where all of the candidates are the same party affiliation and the winner will have no opposition. Therefore, all District 4 voters, regardless of their party affiliation, will have this on their ballot in August. It's a universal primary. So if you live in District 4, you will choose between the 2 Daniels. Then we have the school board. School board races are nonpartisan races, and we have 5 members of the Collier County School Board. All Collier County voters elect all 5 school board members. Their terms of office are staggered, and the seats for Districts 1, 3, and 5 will be on the ballot. So, in Districts 1 and Districts 3, there was only one person running, and therefore those 2 people were automatically elected. In District 1, Jeff Donaldson, and in District 3, incumbent Kelly Mason, they are automatically elected to the school board. District 5, incumbent Tim Moshier does have a challenger, Ford DeLuzma. So they're nonpartisan elections, meaning all voters in the county will see this on their ballot and all voters will choose between the 2. Since we only have 2 candidates, that means that this race is going to be decided in August. In addition, there are 4 referendum questions that will be decided in August. We have a City of Naples charter amendment, a Marco Island bond referendum, an Everglades City mosquito control district referendum, and a Greater Naples Fire District governance referendum. Depending on whether or not you live in one of these areas, you will have this on your ballot. So we've gone over everything that's going to be on the ballot for a Collier County voter. At this point, Tina, let's see, do we have, I'm seeing a bunch of, I'm seeing 9 in the chat. What do we have there?
Okay, let me see. Oh. No, there are no new questions.
Okay, no new questions. If you do have a question, write it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to take you into the key takeaways. I think it's clear that what appears on your ballot depends on a number of things. Obviously, it depends on the district in which you live, but now you understand that if a race is partisan, it depends on your party affiliation. You're only going to see certain races on your ballot if you're registered in the party that is holding a closed primary. And in order to vote in one or more of these partisan primaries, you have to be registered at least 29 days before the election. That date was July 20th, so it's too late if you haven't done it by now.
Andy, we do have a new question. Would you like to take it now?
Sure.
Sure. It says, what about the people running for seats as fire commissioners?
That'll be in November.
In November. Okay.
Right.
All right, Karen.
Okay. Another thing that is a function of July 20th is updating your voter registration for a name change or if you moved, in addition to changing your party affiliation. July 20th was the deadline for that. You probably know by now that the legislature changed the law governing how often you have to request a mail ballot. It's now a requirement that after every general election, all the requests for mail ballots are become void. And if you want to have a voter vote by mail ballot, you must request it again. So the deadline, if you want to have it mailed to you, is August 6th. And you need to know that the post office will not forward ballots. Even if you have all of your first class mail forwarded, they will not forward a ballot. And so you need to be sure that you've told the supervisor where you want that ballot sent. If you got a new driver's license after July 31st, this is something that I was not aware of. You want to make sure that the supervisor of elections knows about that. On July 31st, 2024, a new law went into effect that requires the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles to assign more secure numbers to driver's licenses and state ID cards. And since that day, anyone who has renewed or replaced their license has received a new driver license number. And the objective, according to the state, is to improve security and enhance ID protection. So eventually, everybody's going to have a new driver license number. So how does that affect your voter registration? If you think about it, when you're registering to vote or you're seeking other assistance from the election office, they ask you either for the last four digits of your social security number or your Florida driver's license number. If you don't happen to know that your driver license changed, or if you haven't notified them that your driver license changed, or if the state hasn't notified them, which is supposed to happen, but sometimes it doesn't, you may just run into a little speed bump there. And so it's always a good idea when you check what information the state has on file for you, make sure that they have your correct driver license number as well. Another thing you want to be aware of is your signature. We all know that our signatures are not what they used to be. And checking signatures is one of the things that the state does when you go to vote to make sure that you are the valid voter. So if your signature has changed, you want to update your signature with the supervisor's office. Another thing you should be aware of as we are getting older, some of us have power of attorney. Some of us have vision issues. Some of us have a disease that means we are not able to control our hands, and we have someone else who's acting as our agent. A power of attorney cannot sign for you when you go to vote. You can't have them sign the back of your mail ballot that says John Doe acting as agent for Jane Doe. The supervisor of elections is required by law not to count those ballots. So if that is your situation, you want to make sure that you've made arrangements with the Supervisor of Elections office before Election Day to make sure that your vote will count. Key dates, we've been over this. August 6th is the last day to request a vote by mail ballot. Early voting will start August 8th and run through the 15th. August 18th is Election Day. One last chance for questions before I go into my little wrap up. Tina, anything else?
No, let me double check. No, it's a lie.
No.
No.
Okay. Well,
All right.
I want to thank you all for coming to this presentation today. I am sharing with you a picture of a book that I published beginning of this year called Vote Smart Collier County, a nonpartisan guide for Collier County voters. If you do not have a copy, and if you have your phone with you, you can scan the QR code here. It'll take you to the page on my website where you can find out how to get a copy of the book. It provides factual, nonpartisan information about how our local, state, and federal governments are organized, the various voting districts that we live in, where to go to get key information. I wanted this to be a physical document that people could tuck away and pull out when they need a reminder of what something is or how something works. So we covered a lot, how our primary election system works, why your party registration is so important. Oh, I've got a typo. The political environment in which our elections take place, the offices and some of the candidates that will be on the ballot, and what you need to do to be ready to vote. So here is how you can get a hold of me. My website is sparkers-soapbox.com. My email address is sandy@sparkers-soapbox.com. I try to post on all of the various forms of social media, and I welcome your questions anytime. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for making this possible, for giving me the opportunity to help you be more informed voters.
Thank you, Sandy, so much. It helps so many of us as we're trying to figure out how to vote, how to be an informed voter. Also, would like everyone to know we also print your voter guide and
Yeah,
have them
sorry, I forgot
available.
to mention
Yeah,
that.
no. We do have them. We've been giving them out to the public at our events, and if any members want to just let me know. So we do have a supply as well. And, and it helps us tremendously. Okay, so everyone, this recording will be available in a few days if you want to review anything, or for people that have missed this. And thank you again, Sandy, and thank you everyone for participating. And again, if there are questions, can get Sandy directly, or